trauma is so interesting because trauma can show up in somebody can have similar trauma but show up in different ways. So somebody can go through sexual assault, and one person is very, pleasant and very soft and gets scared easily. Another person's very hard and very aggressive, right? They both went through similar abuses, but it's presented very differently. And a lot of people might prefer the more sullen, the more subdued person than the one that's a bit more aggressive. You see it with a lot of black kids, right? In school in the UK, and I think it's the same, unfortunately, most likely in the Western world, that black kids are more likely to be excluded. It's very clear that when a black child is struggling, sometimes they're just told that they're aggressive.
Listen, I love therapy. I love my therapist. I hope you haven't found my TikTok. But as therapy becomes destigmatized, it's led to a lot of people participating in it who just want to be able to put in their Hinge bio that they're in therapy and not actually do any of the real work. And listen, that's fine. Keep therapists in business, create space for yourself, but providing a bunch of people with the academic vocabulary to justify their own behavior at any cost in any context, it's creating a master manipulator generation. I fear we may be about to fly too close to the sun.
Okay, so I think the point that I like that she made is the fact that there are some people that literally do 3 months of therapy, and then when they when they meet you and you're talking, like I see it on Ready to Love, for example. Ready to Love is like a black American dating show, and the most common line is, "I've done the work, I've done the work, I've done the work." I've gone to therapy. I've done the work. Then when you find out how long were you in therapy, 3 months. I've done 3 months to deal with 20 years of marriage, and you've just divorced. Nah, sorry. Most people don't know, but me, you couldn't tell me that I meet you. You were in a relationship of any significance. You've broken up. It most likely was very traumatic and difficult and not the easiest thing. And you did 3 months of therapy, 6 months even, and you've done the work. I'm sorry. I don't know what work you've done. You just started the work. See, people are not aware of it because that person probably feels that they've done the work, but then you see how they present themselves on online on the show, and you realize that you ain't done the work, or you've started the work. You need to continue the work, right? I've been in therapy for 9 years, and I'm going to continue. In all honesty, I'm not going to stop until my therapist passes on to the other side, and then at that point, I've got to consider: do I find another therapist? That'll probably be quite hard. I wish my therapist was young just for this reason, so I could have her for like 30, 40 years. But by God's grace, she will last for another 10, 15 years, and that will be great. So I think that, yeah, obviously she's been hyperbolic about people putting their bios. But again, it's an example that you talk to people and somebody's like, I'm very self-aware. Have you gone therapy? No. I'm very self-aware. Have you gone therapy? Yeah. How long? 3 months. Or I only had 6. I've heard people say they've gone therapy. I'm like, okay, how long? 6 sessions. So let me say this. I'm not invalidating whether it's 1 session, 2 sessions, 10 sessions or more. What I am saying is that it's like me saying I've done martial arts. What level you in? No, I just went for 6 sessions. You'd be like, okay, beginner. Like I didn't even get a belt, mate. It's like you went, but you didn't. Yeah, there's a big difference between I tasted therapy and I've engaged, and I'm engaging in long-term substantial therapy to understand who I am so I can be the best version of myself. 2 totally different things from I went therapy for a couple of sessions. 2 different things. Well done. Congratulations. It is a very big step to even go therapy once, let alone more than 1 time. But please recognize there is a big difference from a few sessions, even a couple of months, to a significant process where you are going to therapy to deal with the underlying issues that you and everybody else has, and myself included, is absolutely essential. We understand. So talking to therapists now, because she's addressing therapists, right? Because what I'm understanding, what I'm seeing is that she's not talking about her therapist. She's saying that she's met people who, let's just call it how it is. They are an a-hole, right? And they are in therapy, and their a-hole has not reduced. And this is, let me be very honest with you, a therapist, maybe we don't want to admit it. And this is why I say we have to be very honest as practitioners. And when you see therapists there's a therapist who went viral the other day because she said she doesn't want to work with male therapists, right? People got onto her, but she feels threatened and she feels quite uncomfortable with some male clients that she has worked with. So, and I think therapists nowadays have become the new, saints of the new saints, and they can't express how they feel, because I see therapists saying when they say something, people get onto them, or they feel that people always get onto them. And this is an example. This person on TikTok, who was also a client, is giving an example of, there's many people that are in therapy and they're not changing. They are just becoming worse, and they're just justifying their behavior. Somebody who is, I don't know, again, manipulative will be very, very a minor few. But what I would say is, let's say somebody is a user. Okay, yeah, let's say they use it. They suck up the energy of people, maybe unintentionally, and they go into therapy, right? And maybe after a while, people are kind of increasingly getting frustrated and rejecting them, because they're tired of being used. They're tired of you constantly dependent on them. You're not standing on your own 2 feet and taking responsibility. You lack accountability. A therapist might come to that person. That person gets affirmed that, there's nothing wrong, is you got to be interdependent, and if these people cannot be there for you, they're not good friends. So this person gets a real picture that people are not there for them. People only that people are trying to use them, and they're not seeing that they're the common denominator in their lives. So they might reject those earlier friends, because of therapy, meet new friends, continue that pattern of using people. Then a few friends also get annoyed, and then because they're like, oh, I went therapy, my therapist told me XYZ. Their usage behavior, their behavior where they draw on people's strengths and not give enough, right? So basically being quite selfish, it's not addressed, was not addressed in therapy. So what happens, understandably, is that behavior, that characteristic, or that trait remains the same, and is justified based on their childhood experience. So if their childhood experience where they were highly independent, never asked for help, and then maybe for whatever reason in adulthood they have become quite dependent, right? A therapist might surmise from that, saying it's actually good that you lean on people, because you don't want to be too hyper independent, because you was when you were younger, but these people around you don't appreciate you, and so your behavior is justified. Rather, there should be balance, and a good therapist might be able to see that they were very hyper independent, and maybe they're now very dependent on people, because of something. There's a reason for that, a reason for like a kind of turn in behavior, but people are quite put off by that. And if a good therapist who is using themselves to understand the client, which we call transference, thank you, Freud, might feel, so in a situation like this, if a client is very clingy, yeah, I might, in the transference, and every therapist will pick up transference very different to them, but I might in the transference feel like, oh, this client just irritates me. This really irritates me. What's going on? So in supervision, I will speak to my supervisor, who is a qualified therapist as well, with a bit more experience, and we'll basically talk back and forth, and we'll end up working out that in the transference, me feeling annoyed by this client and wanting the client to push away is maybe what they induce in other people. They engender a response in others to push them away, because something about them is too needy. And the people that feel that neediness feel like it's too much. It will begin to make you understand that client. So then what ends up happening is, in therapy, you might subtly say, I sometimes get a sense that you feel too much for people, and it makes you really sad, because you realize that when you reach out to people, people reject you. How does that feel like? And then you go on and you go on and you go on, and then the person might say, yeah, people tell me that I'm clingy. So what does clingy mean to you? What does that mean? What does that look like? And let's talk about what clingy is and what clingy is not. And then essentially, hopefully, over a period of time, they begin to use their own resources and stand on their own 2 feet and depend on themselves, and become interdependent rather than highly dependent on others. And then they'll be able to maybe apologize to friends who they've used, or if those friends have gone, make new friends with new boundaries. That's what should happen in therapy. It shouldn't be that a person comes in being a user and leaves being a user. The therapist ain't done no work. And I can't blame the therapist, because I don't really know how that happens. But maybe it does happen because some people come to play in therapy. Some people don't like to listen. Look, being a therapist isn't easy. I'm very fortunate that most of my clients, even though they're defended and, they listen to me, but some clients don't listen. So you can say something, you can be very subtle, you can be thinking creatively. I should say this and this way and that way. And they'll go, no, that's not it. That's not it. It's very difficult if you have a client in therapy that's constantly saying no to whatever intervention, whatever suggestion you say is a constant no, 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 no. Some people have difficult personalities. Let me be very honest with you, right? Trauma is so interesting because trauma can show up in, somebody can have similar trauma but show up in different ways. So somebody can go through sexual assault and one person is very, pleasant and very soft and gets scared easily. Another person's very hard and very aggressive, right? They both went through similar abuses, but it's presented very differently. And a lot of people might prefer the more sullen, the more subdued person than the one that's a bit more aggressive. You see it with a lot of black kids, right? In school in the UK, and I think it's the same, unfortunately, most likely in the Western world, that black kids are more likely to be excluded. It's very clear that when a black child is struggling, sometimes they're just told that they're aggressive. When I was growing up, I had certain struggles. And I don't know, I probably was told I was aggressive, but what I remember was I was never seen as vulnerable. My vulnerability was never seen because I didn't always cry. I cried. I just never cried in front of teachers because I did not find it helpful. But I was constantly crying at home. I was crying at home every day. But because I didn't cry, at school in front of a teacher, they couldn't see my vulnerability. Maybe I was like this. Maybe I was like whatever. And again, maybe teachers need to learn, and maybe they are learning now, learn the childhood development, understanding that if a child is doing this and doing that, there's a tantrum, they're defensive, there's something is happening that is presenting a certain way. Of course, if a child is pushing and being aggressive, it's very hard to be like, oh, what's really going on for you? Well, I guess it depends on the age of the child. If a child is like 17, you might be less sympathetic to a child who is like 11, who's 9 or 10. But you do find the adultification, especially of black women, but also of black men. The adultification of black people is a real and true thing. So as therapists, we need to do more. And another video is going to emphasize, again, a very similar point. There's going to be 2 discussion points within the next video. I think it's really important that as therapists, we understand the wider perspective, the social environment a person's in, and recognize that the person, you're responsible to that client, but I feel like I'm responsible to make sure that I put my client back better than they left, better than they've come in, and they're able to function in society. I am not trying to make my client be so self-confident that they come across arrogant outside. I'm not trying to get my client to they came in with lots of relationships, some not healthy, some healthy, and then by the end of it, they've ended all their relationships because they were not able to discriminate the healthy ones from the non-healthy ones. Like, we need to, as therapists, help our clients to judge righteously, to judge well, to discriminate between a person who uses them and doesn't, the person who manipulates them and doesn't. There's no point a person coming in saying they feel manipulated by people. Is it everyone? No. Then it's not people by some people. Okay. And then they leave out basically alone because everybody that was around them is manipulative, when they came in saying that actually only a few people are. And that's what we've agreed and recognized, that it's not every single person, but there is quite a few people in your life that are manipulative, and these are the reasons why. Then once you break down the reasons why that they attract manipulative people, that they fall for manipulation, that they themselves, a lot of people that are manipulated can also be manipulative because that's all they see, that's what they're used to. But there are people around them that are not manipulative, but maybe they don't give as much attention to or time to. What about those? Are there people around? So, for example, a question I would ask people is like, do they have friends? Because I think it's really important to know that, does this person in front of me, is he or she able to speak about their feelings to other friends? Some people are not, that they've got good friends, but I'm not ready to share with them. It's not them, it's me. Some people, I don't have people, I don't think I can share with them. It's very different. You can have friends and they can be amazing, and that if you share with them, they'll be there for you, but you don't, for your reasons, right? there's a difference between you have friends that is just surface level, right? The effect is the same in the sense where you don't share with the friends, but the quality is different. And one person actually has good friends that they think are reliable, and another is just like, no, I would never, I would never share with them.